Welcome to Talking Targaryen. Today we're talking about House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 4, The Red Dragon and the Gold. This video/podcast will of course have spoilers through that episode, but no future spoilers. We don't read the Fire and Blood book, and we don't even watch the Next Time On previews. I'm Gil, by the way. I'm here with my brother Daniel.
Hey, what's up?
And Adam.
Yoo-hoo. Trying to turn up the energy.
That helped. I'm feeling hyped now.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with my overall thoughts. Let you guys go the last couple of times. Thought it was a good episode. There was no sneaky castle kill. Though someone in the Discord pointed out, we do need to put an asterisk on that because there was a sneaky castle scene, but it was a hallucination from Daemon. We get a cool battle at the end of the episode. I thought it was intense, had a meaningful outcome, and it was a new sort of battle. We got more dragon versus dragon action than we've gotten in a while. So I liked it overall. Possibly my favorite of the season. I think each episode has gotten progressively better for me. But Daniel, what did you think?
Definitely my favorite of the season. I loved this episode. I couldn't watch it live. I just watched it a couple hours ago, and I loved it. I was so excited, and so many things I want to talk about. And also, I don't watch the Next Time On. None of us do. I want to talk about this later. Is Aegon dead? Is that definite? Or we don't know yet.
Let's save that.
Know.
We'll save it for the end.
It looks, I'm just as blind to the future as you are, but he looks pretty dead to me.
Okay, we'll talk about it more.
If the next episode starts with him, his finger twitches and the maesters heal him and turn him into some kind of mountain zombie or something like that, I'll be pretty disappointed.
Well, so I'll say this.
I'll roll my eyes.
I normally don't watch the Next Time On preview. This time I did see Melisandre shows up and she says something like, there are secrets to resurrection.
We can rebuild him.
That's not true. I didn't watch the Next Time On. Everyone relax.
Adam, it is interesting to think she's alive during this.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Well, I don't know why it popped into my head while watching. I just started wondering who could we see in this show that would still be alive come Game of Thrones, and she's
Bran.
really the one that we know about. Well, yeah, Bran, yeah, in manner of speaking. What about you, Adam? Overall thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, I would say best of the season and one of the best of the series. My big takeaway is that the show does much more. The show is much better when it's the scope of any given episode is smaller. So even though a lot of stuff still happened in this episode, they didn't traverse time and space,
right?
In ways that took me out of it.
And they even things that were instantaneous previously were elongated here. Rhaenyra can get to King's Landing in a flash, one episode, and now this episode, it's where is she? It's taking her forever to get back. Actually, if you look at the IMDb ratings, I think if you compare all the episodes of Game of Thrones and all the episodes of House of the Dragon, this is the first House of the Dragon episode that cracks the top 10 highest rated all time. So at least according to general audiences, this is the favorite of the series. And it even compares favorably to some Game of Thrones episodes.
Daniel put his bot farm into high gear.
Yeah, in the last 2 hours since he saw the episode. Let's jump into the recap. Once again, I have meticulously curated this recap so we can stick with each storyline as long as possible before they intertwine. And we're going to start with Harrenhal, with Daemon.
Wait, before they intertwine more than a Lyseni orgy.
That's right. Nice. So Daemon, he has another wacky dream. He's in the throne room.
Yeah, it was real wacky and silly.
He sees young Rhaenyra, and she tells him, "You created me, Daemon." And he's like, "No, I didn't." He didn't say that. And then she says, "Yet you are now set on destroying me, all because your brother loved me more than he did you." And then he cuts her head off, and the head keeps talking. "This is what you always wanted, is it not?" So, yeah, I always wanted a talking head on my mantle.
So
yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
what's going on in Damon's head? I cannot possibly figure it out.
This is the
If only they had
part
a
of the
nightmare that could spell it out for us.
Yeah, it's the only part of the episode I didn't like. I always hate dream sequences, and as much as some of this imagery is interesting, it's like any of the subtext. Like, I think that Damon really just wants his brother's approval and he can't get it. It's like, yes, that's now spelled out explicitly.
The next nightmare sequence is going to be Viserys talking to Daemon and Viserys saying, "I know you've always wanted my love and approval. How long have we been brothers for?"
You then attached yourself to my daughter. The one thing I'll say is when she says, "This is what you always wanted." I did find that somewhat interesting because we're in his head, right? So all the things being said should contain some sort of truth. But in this case, I don't think it's true that this is what he's always wanted, i.e. to get rid of Rhaenyra, take the throne from her. More, I think that's the perception people have of him. I even think to some extent, he really doesn't try to dispel the idea that he wants the throne. There's the whole call me your grace thing. But I think there's some pressure on him to play that role. Like he kind of likes the fact that people see him as wanting the throne. It's almost like as the man and as the person who should have been Viserys' heir, he wants to be seen that way. But when push comes to shove, I don't think he really wants the throne. And he definitely doesn't want to cut off Rhaenyra's head. But that's how I read that.
I liked when the crown fell onto the floor. In my head, I was like, don't pick it up, don't pick it up, don't pick it up. And he didn't. It looked like he was kind of turning away from it at the last second. Which like, I liked that because if he did pick it up or did show an interest in the crown, that would have felt like a 180 in terms of character, like what they did with Jaime at the end of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and I think I agree that he doesn't want the throne and he doesn't want to kill Rhaenyra. More so, he's sort of confronting his sort of like self-destructive tendencies, right? In that, he does care about Rhaenyra and he doesn't want to ruin things for her, but he is being driven to do it because yes, he's been desperate for this love and approval. And this is, it's like he's confronting the sort of horrors that could lead to, right? If he is allowed or if he acts just based on those impulses.
Right, if you take it to its logical conclusion. Then
How much better would life be if we could just act on our impulses and it actually led to good outcomes? Just as an aside, asking for a friend.
With the way that your voice sounds so low energy, it feels like you've been following your impulses and just hit your lowest point.
This is where
well, let's record talking Targaryen. Fine. Well, Rhaenyra's head says...
Wait, you didn't really ask what I thought. I guess you're about to go through the scene more. All right, go through the scene more.
Wait. But Adam doing the yoo-hoo, it just reminded me. Remember the Futurama episode where there's some party guy it turns out he's been dead most of the episode? Yeah.
Woo! It was, I forget the exact situation. It was maybe another person they unfroze from the past or
no, I think actually it's very not ironic but coincidental because it's exactly what you just described, Adam. I think
he does whatever he wants.
Yes, but I think they were looking into an alternate future and that might have been a version of Fry.
Yeah.
I think, and he basically gets so obese and he dies. And then it's his flabs, the gas is escaping. And so they think he's partying because he's like, woo! But it's just the sound of the gas escaping.
Well, because they were rolling him around to try to get to move him. So So it's season 3, episode 2 called Parasites Lost. And it was, Fry eats a very old, he eats an old egg salad sandwich from a vending machine in the bathroom at an interstellar truck stop. And I think he gets infested with these microscopic worms.
Are these the ones that make
I don't
him
see
super
how
smart?
does this lead to gas escaping?
I think that's a different episode.
This is a different episode. I just searched Futurama gas escaping, and that's what led me to.
But he just said woo. No, that was air escaping from the folds of his fat. Woo! Woo! Woo!
But I do
been
have
a-
the picture. I have the picture of the guy being rolled, and he has
All right, why
blonde
don't you-
hair. So,
You could send it to me. I'll throw it up when I'm editing this.
oh, okay, yeah, that'd be funny.
We just last that related to comparing House of the Dragon other shows. I saw some meme that was saying that House of Dragon stole like all of its ideas from Shrek. And it just shows all these scenes where you're seeing the same thing happening in Shrek and in House of the Dragon. And it's like Lord Farquaad as Aegon.
I'm just picturing people like hitting fast forward to get back to House of the Dragon. But I think I have to point out they announced Trek 5 a few hours ago.
Really?
Finally, yeah.
Wow.
Announced what?
I remember seeing the first Shrek in theaters.
Oh,
Shrek 5, Daniel.
I think you said Trek.
Gil, I
and somehow
remember
lost-
which theater we saw it at. I remember leaving, walking through the parking lot with you, and the rest of the family.
Should
And
we
you were-
start a Shrek podcast?
These days, that would do very well. Shrek has gained like full Zaddy status.
There's been a raven, Rhaenyra's head says. But it's that thing where someone's saying something in real life and it invades your dream. And Daemon, gets word that Cole is sweeping across the Crownlands, getting castles to claim for Aegon. Daemon meets with Oscar. He was going to meet with Grover Tully. Remember the guy that
Yeah,
bowels?
Incontinent.
He's incapacitated. So he meets
he
with
can't
his
hold it in.
That's right. Thank you.
He cannot control his defecation, is what it means.
More precisely, yeah.
You might look at him and mistake him for Shrek. His grandson comes in his place, and it's basically a pointless meeting because this kid can't do anything. Daemon needs this kid's help like he needs a hole in the head. Basically.
Can I circle back for a second?
Sure.
I thought we're laughing
so
extra
dumb.
because Gil kept saying different things like he needs a hole in the head before we started recording. Just like he latched onto the phrase.
It's like a phrase I haven't heard in a long time, and I just remembered it today, and I'm like, that's a good phrase.
What was cool is at the end of like the nightmare sequence when Rhaenyra's disembodied head is saying there's been a raven, and it does that demonic sounding thing where you have multiple different voices saying it simultaneously with like a dissonant kind of non-harmony, I guess. At first it just sounds like, oh, they're doing that like ghostly spooky horror thing, but really he's hearing Rhaenyra's voice and the voice of the person in real life simultaneously. So it's actually like a diegetic
Yes.
reason for it to sound so demonic and creepy. Which I think from a bigger standpoint is why you guys are making fun of the scene for really spelling everything out, but I actually didn't mind it because it didn't spell out anything we don't already know. So
Wait,
I don't
whose
feel
voice
like
were you saying we were hearing?
just like the
Simon.
Simon, yeah, who was just saying there's been a raven.
Oh, okay.
You could hear both that voice and Rhaenyra's simultaneously, and I don't know if it just worked out this way or how much they had to like tweak the pitches in post, but they sounded like kind of demonic when overlaid on top of each other, like intentionally, I'm sure. But anyway, in the same way that felt, they found kind of a natural way to add a spooky and potentially supernatural element. The whole nightmare sequence or dream sequence felt similar to me. It didn't feel cheap because they're not using it to tell us something we don't already know. Instead, it's believable that Daemon really is having these recurring nightmares, so they're showing it to us. It says more about like his like emotional decline and like distraction, and the real supernatural impact that the place is having on him.
Yeah,
And potentially the impact that this like non-maester lady is having on him, but we don't, that remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I won't harp on it too much. I agree with you. It's not really, there's different reasons I don't like dream sequences. A lot of times it's because it is cheap. It's an easy way to tell us something. To your point, this is stuff we already know, so it doesn't really feel like cheating. But it still rubs me the wrong way for the other reason I don't love dream sequences is that they often just feel too clean. Like at least personally, I don't often have dreams that are so straightforward and comprehensible where you can wake up and point to, oh, here are the issues I've worked through in this like therapeutic dream sequence. It's almost like I want these to feel like David Lynch directed them. I just imagine how creative the sequences could be, and instead they just feel so straightforward. Designed.
There is some creativity with the like difficult to understand voice, which ends up being Old Valyrian, and they make good use of the language of Old Valyrian like throughout the episode. Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just also gonna say that like I feel like I've definitely had like dreams or nightmares where, and then because I'm sure like I don't remember all of it, right? Like I probably forget the stuff that doesn't make sense, right? Like you kind of remember the story, like you remember like the story of the dream that is coherent to you. And so I don't know, it is kind of realistic to me that it's like you would remember a sort of coherent, psychologically meaningful like dream or nightmare. But also in general, like these nightmare sequences also just don't really bother me. Like I liked that scene.
All right, I'm turned around on it. Great scene. Yeah. So the meeting.
He just doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
Gil needs to talk more about this scene like he needs a hole in the head.
Yeah.
Well, his meeting with Oscar, Grover Tully's grandson, basically a pointless meeting. He asks Simon to summon the Blackwoods. He'll talk to them and get himself a little army. Let's stick with Harrenhal. Later on, Daemon has another dream. He follows a man, turns around, and it seems to be Daemon himself, but dressed up like Aemond with the eye patch.
Yeah. And he even has like the same walking posture of Aemond, which I thought was really well done.
So what does that mean?
It's like very upright, kind of quick with purpose. His like robe is like swaying a little bit in the wind, and like his shoulders are just super upright and kind of, that's the best I can describe it. But his walking, his gait and posture from that angle was exactly the same as the real actor who plays Aemond.
And Daniel, you take me into Daemon's psyche. What does this mean?
I don't know. I was trying to think about it, right? Like we keep saying that there's like similarities between Aemond and Daemon, right? And their names are even very similar, right? A few thoughts, right? Like one is, Aemond's obviously on the other side, right? And Aemond is, gonna kill Rhaenyra if he can. I feel like there's a part of Daemon that almost thinks like, yeah, he easily could have just been on the other side, right? Is like, I don't know, and that's the same thing, right? He worries he's a danger to Rhaenyra. So maybe that's it, is he's kind of, it bothers him that he is sort of this loose cannon, like a weapon, right? That he's not sure he can control. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think he sees some of himself in Aemond. Both of them, I think, carry a big chip on their shoulder from when they were younger, and a lot of their actions grow out of that. Aemond, of course, has grown up very bitter, looking to prove himself, and I think that's largely true for Daemon as well. He's a little bit older, so maybe now he's starting to get perspective, like, I got to get a handle on my emotions and stop letting them rule me. So I think him seeing himself in Aemond is some of that self-reflection happening.
Oh, wow.
I want to know. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just realized, if Aegon is dead, Aemond is heir, I think, right? So Aemond killed his brother to take the throne. And it's like Daemon, people always thought Daemon might do that to his brother.
Interesting.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this dream might have a component of premonition, which we know is something his bloodline is prone to.
All right. For some reason, I felt like you were about to say more, but
maybe it was the tone of my voice, but yeah. Well, okay. I do have more to say about it though. Just different trains of thought. So I do think part of what's happening is he's having a premonition, in the sense that he's noticing a lot of the parallels between his situation and Aemond's situation, and those parallels run very deep on a level that he doesn't probably realize on a conscious level, but somewhere in his head and somewhere in the haunted castle, I think you can't ignore the parallels between Daemon's relationship with his brother Viserys and Aemon's relationship with his brother Aegon. And Aemond is like Daemon if he had even less reservation about these things and even less loyalty to any individual family member. I don't think Daemon is just purely loyal to anyone with his blood, but he is fiercely loyal to the family name overall and a lot of the individuals he's with. I can't think of anyone that Aemond is loyal to on an individual level. I think he's loyal to his house in a more abstract sense.
Have we even seen that, actually?
Yeah, to me, my impression of Aemon is that he's completely just out for blood. He's quote unquote loyal to his house because that's the means of his revenge.
Yeah. Okay. I guess like loyalty, if it's a means toward personal gain, isn't true loyalty. But at least in effect, it means he'll do what he can to keep his house in power.
Mm-hmm.
Although with the end goal being his own sense of victory and vengeance, however that manifests.
Well, Daemon wakes from this bizarre fantasy of his, and he sees that weird lady, meets her officially. Her name is Alice Rivers. She's kind of the maester because the last one fled in the night, and she took over their duties. She talks about how this place is cursed, Adam, like you said, and she says that there were a bunch of weirwood trees here that got cut down by Black Heron. Daniel, like you pointed out.
Oh man, I should have waited for you to give me credit.
Well, I felt bad last week because I think when we got to the part where we acknowledged that I mixed up Ulf and Hugh, and I didn't give Adam nearly enough credit for that because I think I was low energy because we were pretty far into the podcast by that point. So this week, everyone's getting credit for whatever they got right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Black Heron back in the day cut down a bunch of weirwood trees, which are heart trees imbued with spirits of those who lived long before Black Heron came here. Daemon's bed.
Daemon already knows that. She just said that for the audience.
Well, Daemon's
not a big deal.
You know what we didn't know, though? Daemon probably didn't know that his bed is made of such a tree. And then she's
I thought it was obvious.
And, yeah, I gave that bed one look. That's 100% heart tree.
It has one of those tags on it that's like, this is illegal to remove.
That's why he's haunted. Someone removed it.
Yeah.
Had any weird dreams lately? He's like, you're a strange woman. I'm not a woman. I'm an owl in a woman's body.
She actually might be.
Explain.
In a sense. So remember the other day, I don't know, a week or two ago when I was talking about the connection between Larys and the rats and spying around the castle. And I was like, the term for it, for someone who can see through the eyes of an animal, it's not green seer, but it's something like that. And then it hit me right when we finished recording. It's a warg. So I don't know. She might be a warg or something.
All right. Well,
I don't think it's going to get more like elaborated on than that. But as kind of weird and I don't know, like she gives the vibe of like quirky, aloof, weird person pulling the strings. Kind of like similar to like Helena, but with, I don't know, more empowered.
More self-awareness too.
Yeah. But also, it's also not that weird of a thing to say depending on the person's like spiritual background in Westeros, because if she might be a warg or connected to warg somehow, it's at least a known thing that people can do.
She's also very perceptive because she tells Daemon, you came here after quarreling with your wife. Quarreling, Daniel, means kind of like fighting with somebody, like arguing. Because she noticed that he hasn't sent any ravens. You want the throne, don't you? Here, have a drink of this. He drinks his stuff, and then suddenly he's meeting with the Blackwoods.
Why did he drink that?
I don't know. I think Daniel, go ahead.
He was like too dazed and kind of.
I was going to say, by the way, she's perceptive, or she is like reading his mind or something and is just coming up with like an excuse to make it seem like she's not doing that.
True.
I mean, we think something's causing these dreams. There's some like weird magic in this place. She probably has something to do with it. Like, I think she is manipulating him psychologically and magically. Like, I don't know that he really chose to drink that completely of his free will.
If he
You never
did,
do.
I would say he took it as a challenge almost. Like, she thinks I'm a wimp. I'm going to drink this.
I was half expecting to see like a purple stain on his lips after, just like the what's it called in Game of Thrones when Daenerys meets those like really pale, like vampire looking people, and she drinks from this like purple brew like ayahuasca or something, and has all these insane visions. It reminded me of that. I thought it would have been a nice touch to just like see this like purple tinge on his lips after, but it's a different concoction.
Yeah, it is interesting. I do wonder what was the point of that liquid. I mean, I feel like it has to come back. I mean, he has this lost time now. Like, what happened in that time? Is he going to
Alien
drink it
abduction.
again and we find out that it's doing something to him? I'm curious. But as he meets, so the meeting with William Blackwood is basically, hey, we'll fight with you if you and your dragon bring some justice to the Brackens. But the main point of their conversation, I think, is as they talk, we see that Daemon has a vision of Lena.
Oh, it was Shade of the Evening.
Shade of
And
the
the people who were like hooked on it were the warlocks in
Mm.
Karth.
Very cool.
So
Sorry.
Lena was Damon's wife?
Wife, yeah. Who he lost when she was she was in childbirth. It was going wrong. They kind of gave Daemon a similar choice they gave Viserys. We can cut the baby out. It'll kill her. Baby might live. But while they're talking, she goes to her dragon and says, Dracarys. Takes her
And
own
he's
life.
he's like, thank God I didn't have to decide.
So,
He did
so
that
is
thing
this
where
another...
you're about like, the doorbell's ringing. You're about to get up. Like, oh, okay, you got it.
Yeah.
So is this like another person Damon like feels guilty about?
Yeah,
Is that what this
I think
is?
so. I mean, he didn't treat her very well. I mean, they were nice to each other, but she was getting very antsy. They were away from all the action for years. She wanted to go back to King's Landing, back to Dragonstone, or wherever she wanted to go to just get back into, we're meant for more than this. We shouldn't just sit here as lords, just having a grand old time. And he never let her do that. And then she died.
So if I think of Harrenhal's curse as something where these nightmares he's having are manifestations of things he subconsciously like tucked away as things he regrets or things he feels guilty about, then if all these things he's experiencing kind of scare him into being a more like integrated and better person, and if he can consciously see, okay, I don't want to wrong these people, and I can actually help them without sacrificing my own goals, like he'll be very powerful and much more interesting to watch if he develops more of a conscience.
Yeah, you pointed out that in that battle at the Stepstones, we saw that he's very capable.
Yeah.
So if he can get himself pointed in the right direction, get more control over his actions, he could be very formidable. Well, you guys feel like you're pretty much done with Harrenhal? Head over to King's Landing?
Let's go.
Smell that throne room?
Tea?
Smell
Smell-
council
Moon
meeting?
tea, moon tea.
Yeah, I smell
right.
some moon tea. I don't know about you. Allison had
They
some
should
pie.
really just
She's-
like all the faucets in King's Landing should just be like laced with moon tea, because everyone needs moon tea, but no one wants to ask, and it's this awkward thing where it's for you. The maester knows it's for you.
I'm sure there wouldn't be any side effects of everybody just drinking gallons of it every day.
Well, then if you start selling Pepto-Bismol there, you got yourself a good business. There were times where the government contemplated putting lithium in like public water supplies just as like a way to stabilize the moods of the masses. I don't know how seriously it was considered, but
I've been sneaking lithium into Adam's drinking water.
It's not.
For years.
It's not working.
Been sneaking lithium into Adam's moon tea.
Adam needs lithium like he needs a hole in the head.
Well, the Grand Maester delivers Alicent some tea, some moon tea, and she's like, it's for a friend of mine. I'll make sure she gets it. But really, it's to prevent pregnancy after her escapades with Cole. Alicent asks the Grand Maester, you think Viserys really wanted Aegon to succeed him? Maester's like, I don't know. And he leaves. I think if he believed it, he would have just said yes.
Yeah.
I think the main point is that Alicent is clearly doubting it after her conversation with Rhaenyra. Because I think you'd be pretty silly not to doubt it after that conversation. I'm doubting it, personally. We get another Green Council meeting. Aegon is quite upset. Why isn't Cole taking Harrenhal? Larys has a great line. That castle is more crippled than I am. And then equally great, he's like, it's beyond Daemon's faculties to actually make use of that castle. I just love the phrasing. Aemond takes charge. He tells Aegon that it must wait. Cole marches on Rook's Rest, which Aemond knows because he and Cole have been exchanging ravens. You can see Aegon is heartbroken. You guys have been plotting without me? And then Aemond humiliates him. Adam, you alluded to this. Great use of High Valyrian. Aegon studied it. Aemond did it to some extent, but he can barely string a sentence together.
They did a good job showing, like, okay, he understands. He can't really engage with it that well. He can't speak it that well. And it shows intellect on Aemond's part for not contradicting the king in a way that everyone else can understand or hear. They can kind of assume maybe that's what he's doing, but he knows how Aegon reacts to this, to like embarrassment and being questioned and having his ego challenged in front of other people, which is why there's actually a little bit more room for back and forth between them, because he doesn't have that feeling that he has to save face immediately the way he would if he was confronted in English.
Quick complaint. I mean, could you imagine being raised as a prince in a castle? People want to teach you High Valyrian. They have all these books, all these ancient histories you have access to, and like not learning any of this stuff. Like, what a jerk. Like, I'm so jealous.
I mean, who here hasn't crumbled under pressure and expectations from somebody else? He didn't want to be king. He didn't ask for this. I got to disagree with you, Daniel. I mean, I spent years trying to learn. Also, some people, they just don't have the mind for it. I spent years trying to learn Spanish in school. And trust me, I tried. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but like, I needed to get an A on every exam. And so for one quiz for Spanish class, that's worth like 2% of your grade, I would study more for that one quiz than all of my finals combined. I would study so much. Our shower growing up, I remember it was that glass that's kind of like blurry. But I realized if you tape paper to it from the outside, it's so close to the glass you can read it. So I was studying nonstop. I had papers taped all over the shower so I could keep studying.
Your struggles with that, that's the reason I didn't take Spanish, because I saw how bad it was for you. I took Latin instead. But like looking back, I think you just, I don't know, you just have a hard time with that stuff. Like it shouldn't have dissuaded me. And now I really regret I don't know more Spanish, but that's a whole other thing.
My experience with Spanish was the complete opposite. I was actually excited for Spanish because of that, because I remembered when I was a little kid watching Gil study like that. I thought it was so cool, like how intense he was about it. So I was excited about it. And then I was disappointed that it was like nowhere near as crazy.
Yeah, it all depends.
Well, I mean, what this goes to show is like, you're just, it all depends how you like grow up and what your interests are. So some people will take better advantage of the resources that come with being a prince than others. Like, I think I probably would have turned out more like Aegon, even though I think I have the intellectual capacity to be, to learn more than anyone there. But do I have the impulse control and drive? I don't think so.
I don't know if I would have been a good king, but I definitely would have been a good prince.
Yeah, look
at
that little
like
proud
Aemond,
smile. on Daniel's face.
No,
You
but
wonder why.
I would have loved to learn. It's like being in school, you know? I loved school. Like
Yeah,
all
if
these
your
people
job-
around me teaching me
Yeah, but
warfare.
this
all
isn't
this
like
cool stuff.
Montessori like education. This is like you sit down with a boring maester. You live in King's Landing, a palace with like you could do anything you want at any time, and he's like, sit down and learn Latin, essentially,
And like once
a language
day,
no one's speaking anymore.
and like every few hours, your mom comes in the room, smacks you, and is like, "You have to become king, or Rhaenyra will kill you. She'll probably kill you anyway."
Yeah,
Like, I don't even want to
Okay,
do
fair
this.
enough.
I don't blame him for wanting to just like, laze around all day, hang out with his friends, go to the see, Sylvie.
Well, Aegon has a great retort to Aemond. He says, "I can't have two. Make a war?" Question mark. But finally, Aegon.
He said what we
Aemond-
were all thinking.
That's right. Aemond puts a bow on it. He says that Harrenhal is going to waste Daemon's time while we take Rook's Rest, which is an easy target. But that's not the real plan. The real plan, we later find out, is they're not attacking Rook's Rest just because it's an easy target, but also because it's right across the bay from Dragonstone. They know that this is going to provoke Rhaenyra into sending a dragon, and Aemond is going to be waiting on the sidelines with his own dragon, Vhagar, and maybe they can take one off the board.
Question.
So I don't know if they will. We'll find out later. Go ahead, Adam.
Why are they keeping this secret? Is it because they think Aegon will just mess it up? People will try to stop them.
I think
It's
people
like-
will try to stop them.
So
I
they're
think-
just very confident in the plan, and the risk of sharing it is that someone will stop it.
Yeah, and I guess who knows who you can trust, right? Like,
I don't know. They don't seem that paranoid. They don't seem as paranoid as they should about openly discussing these plans. I mean,
Well, but
in theory, the council is supposed to be like a safe place to strategize for war, and they show so little caution at other points that I don't think the secrecy has to do with like fear that the plan will leak out to the enemy or something like that. Even maybe they should be afraid of that, but
well, I do want to point out one detail. I like that Aemond refers to Aegon's friends as imbecilic lickspittles.
so they're
accurate.
licking the spittle.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So
Wait, who says that again?
Aemond says it about Aegon's friends. You know his dopey friends?
Oh,
that he-
okay. So it actually makes sense that they're lick spittles because like Aegon spittles and then his friends just lap it up.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So Larys, after this, Larys visits Alicent, who skipped the council meeting. She's not feeling well because she indulged in too much pie. But she left the tea on the table, so there's no secret here. The pie and the indulgence becomes innuendo for Cole. Larys...
It's not the first time we've seen an innuendo related to pie in American media.
That's true. So Larys also comments that Alicent has not seemed herself lately. And she's like, it's only been a few weeks since the king died. And first off, it feels like so much longer than that for us. It's nice to get a little reminder that it's actually not been that much time since all this.
Yeah.
was
I liked
spiraling out
that.
of control. Me too. Larys also notes that she's been studying the histories. And it's obvious that she's having doubts about Viserys' intentions. And I assume she's studying the history to get some idea about the Song of Ice and Fire, figure out if there's any truth to what Rhaenyra is saying. And then the key point, though, what Alicent spells out, is that it doesn't matter Viserys' intentions. Aegon's supporters will believe one thing, Rhaenyra's another. War will be fought, many will die. The victor will ascend to the throne. And I think a great line, the significance of Viserys' intentions died with him. And I think that's all a big theme of the show, right? The way these conflicts grow bigger than the actual people involved in them to a point where it all started doesn't even matter anymore. I think this is more than that. It began as Rhaenyra versus Alicent. At this point, it's essentially torn the realm apart. Getting to the truth is irrelevant.
And this is also like an increasingly black-pilled or green-pilled Alicent.
Nice. Yeah, I have to wonder what she's going. It just if she feels so powerless at the moment. Very curious to see where she goes. Same with Larys, actually. Not that he feels powerless, because I think he always creates his own power through manipulation. But right now, to
Chaos
me,
is a
he feels.
ladder.
What's that?
Chaos is a ladder.
Exactly. But he feels a bit like he's on the back burner right now. And I'm waiting for him to make his next move. I wonder if he suspects what Aemond and Cole are really up to. Right now, to me, it feels like he's observing. He's taking notes. His rats are at work around the castle, maybe.
I think it's safe to assume whenever like smaller parties are scheming and have their own secret plans, I think it's safe to assume Larys knows about them. He just knows to act subtly and to not he can't really stop that plan from unfolding. All he can do is stay out of it, stay alive, gather more information, and figure out what his next move is going to be.
And the other thing too is, Aegon, we'll get to it later, right? But Aegon obviously goes and takes his dragon on his own. Is you would think like Larys intervened previously when Aegon wanted to go to war on his own. You would think like, look, Larys has all his spies and stuff. He would know that that's happening and he could intervene, but he didn't.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I feel like that Aegon slipped away without Larys's knowledge.
Yeah.
Or there was no way for him to stop him this time. I don't.
Yeah, I think it's sort of
go.
a moot point. Like, I don't think Larys wanted Aegon to go get himself killed. It really messes up the status quo that he's been working with. Whether he knew or not that Aegon was sneaking off, I don't think he could have stopped it. And all I can say is he must have known. He knows there's a risk of something like that. There's a very high risk of Aegon going and getting himself killed somewhere along the lines in the early phase of the war, because he's already had to stop it once.
Yeah, agreed. Well, later on we get some more Green Council talk. A lot of logistical talk. Aegon gets bored. He leaves. Finds Alicent rummaging around looking for books, which Aegon has had removed. And she tells him, with no thought to the centuries of knowledge in those pages, as if she cared until like 2 seconds ago, right? When it was just all of a sudden relevant to her life. He's pouting. She gives him a talking to. You're an idiot. Do what we need you to do, which is nothing. All right?
Okay.
Now,
Alicent is so stupid. Like,
yeah.
this is, he's going into her hands. This is her chance to influence him positively, to have power. It's like, this is the chance to actually mentor him. Like, he's there. He realizes he's useless. Give him actual encouragement and a purpose and say, hey, like, this is your chance. Like, you can learn. We can work on this together. And eventually you're going to, like, you could be a good king. And instead, I mean, I think she's basically directly to blame for the really stupid move Aegon makes later.
So I have 2 points about that. One, I think she has this sort of learned helplessness at this point. She's had so much power lost over time and is just seeing everything escalate without her having any ability to slow it down or stop it. She knows the wheels are all in motion. There's pretty much nothing she can do at this point. And the only way for her to cope with it is basically to accept it and realize I can't do anything. All I can, my job is to do nothing. And that's pretty much it. So when an opportunity presents itself for her to like steer Aegon in the right direction, she can't even see it because she's almost been forced to accept her powerlessness. Then the other aspect is she's also never had much of a chance to like connect on a motherly level with her children. So in the same way that when Helena says in a previous episode, there's not to be gained from motherhood, Alicent doesn't disagree or try to convince her otherwise. She had an opportunity to connect or help, I don't know, shape her view in a more productive way, but she didn't. And so I think that has more to do with like Alicent as a mother, and then on the other side, it has to do with Alicent as this like downtrodden victim at this point.
Yeah, I also think it's a little bit of a feedback loop where There may be things that Alicent could have done differently earlier on, but now it's at a point where it's hard to imagine not having given up on Aegon entirely. There's the line about, what are you going to do, hang me like one of those rat catchers? That's sort of a line that it's hard to imagine forgiving a person. How do you look at your son knowing that he just slaughtered a bunch of innocent people out of a temper tantrum? Well, I guess more than that. They killed his son. So maybe that deserves a stronger adjective. Noun? Anyway, to be fair, I do agree, though, even if not true counseling, where he could be shaped into a great king, at minimum, some manipulation could go a long way right now. I think if Otto were here, he would have found a way to make Aegon feel important. We have a task that could use your attention, and then get him. I mean, he did that to Rhaenyra when she was a kid. Go pick new Kingsguard. That's when she picked Cole. They gave her that because she was trying to interject with, we should send dragons, trying to get involved in the council. They got rid of her. I think that's what Otto would have done if he were here. I think Alicent feels pretty heartbroken, pretty frustrated, and she's letting out her anger at him. I did have some more thoughts on this. Just thinking about the differences between Aemond and Aegon, how they turned out so differently. I think Aemond was almost lucky that he was so picked on, because anger is a great motivator. And I think that turned him into who he is. If he didn't have that, he might have ended up more like Aegon. Well, let's leave King's Landing. You want to go hang out with Cole for a bit in the Crownlands?
Smell that pathetic, grimy bad guy.
Hey, Cole was great this episode.
Oh, Cole was awesome this episode. Yeah.
All right, well,
I mean, it's like I said before, like, he is thriving right now. This is the right environment for him.
Well, is it? I'm going to let that question hang. We're going to revisit that.
At least in terms of being like pleasant for the viewer and like entertaining, and where you're not just watching being like, God, what an idiot.
Yeah, he has a couple of strong moments.
Yeah.
So we join them after another one of their many battles where they're getting houses to bend the knee for Aegon. They basically say, bend the knee. If you refuse, you lose. Lord Darkly does refuse, and he loses his head. Cole gets a raven. Cole gets a raven.
Wait. There's something to say there about how he needs. I can't figure out the right way to frame it, but he needs something like he needs his, but not a hole in the head. But he needs it like he needs his head to stay attached to his body. There's something there.
Why don't I kick you out? You think about this and come back and once you have something. I did notice that when Cole beheads him, because of his armor, like, he doesn't get a really great swing. It's like very stiff. He's like, and I would be pissed. I was like, that's how I'm gonna go out, with this like dainty, like fake swing.
Back in those days, you were lucky if they took your head off in one clean stroke.
That's true.
I remember watching Theon try to behead one of the I forget, he was like the armorer of Winterfell or something. He was part of, he was one of the good guys, and he had to smack at that guy's neck so many times with the sword. Terrible.
Well, Cole gets a raven, and we can deduce from the context that it's from Aemond. He reads it, and then he announces, we're heading northeast. Gwaine is surprised. Buddy, I don't know if you know this, but Harrenhal is to the west. Indeed it is, Cole responds. So
it's like so cryptic. He can't just... I mean, he did give a reason. I forget. He had like a one-off line. Oh, they're like... Oh, no, this is later when he's talking about going in the daylight. When they're talking about going in the daytime, he's like, well, they won't expect it.
Right. And
he's Daniel, just really not... He's being all cryptic and not communicating his plan with his people.
Yeah, and here I'm not as 100% sure why he's not telling Gwaine. I guess if people knew what they were doing, were trying to draw out a dragon, they might be like, I don't know if I don't want to sign up for that, basically.
He also can't really trust Gwaine because he knows Gwaine is Alicent's man, and he's not a fully like trusted element here.
Right. So next time we see them, they're getting ready for battle. To Rook's Rest. Adam, this is the scene that you were alluding to. Gwaine calls him crazy. Dragonstone and their dragons are just across the bay. You've grown tired of living, have you? Are you afraid, sir? Gwaine responds, worse, I'm rational. I don't know if you noticed. I felt like the accent completely dropped. Which I thought...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I liked that line.
Yeah, me too. And then Cole says, we advance. Now, I will say, so Adam, what you were saying about how Cole is really in his element, I think he is, and we're meant to feel that he is, but also there's a hubris. I got this. And then he gets to the battle, and this is where he starts to see the reality of what happens when dragons fight a war and how irrelevant the people on the ground become. So we're going to put a pin in that, okay? Because the next time we see Cole, they're going to battle. So before we get there, let's rewind. Let's go to Dragonstone. No, let's go to Driftmark. Smell that drift?
Low tide.
I smell Mark.
We see Alan at the boats. He's been hanging out here for a while. We see him every couple of episodes. Rhaenys approaches him, calls him comely. Then she speaks.
Oh, the second she looks at him, you're like, they had a thing at some point. And she definitely has a type.
Well,
Adam totally missed what happened in
I
this
was
scene.
afraid. I almost texted you guys beforehand to make sure you understood what happened in this scene, so we didn't look stupid.
Yeah.
Wait. Now I look stupid. Hold on.
Alan,
give me a hint. Don't like.
Okay. So Rhaenys talks to Corlys, and she's like, "You shouldn't hold Alan's past against him. I know who he really is." Something like that. So what is she alluding to there?
I can give another hint too.
Hey, go ahead, Daniel.
Rhaenys stares at Alan, says how comely he looks, how comely he looks, and comments that his mother must have been very beautiful.
Right.
And then
she was.
There's a moment where Corlys stands right next to Alan. And you kind of see both of their faces just like right there next to each other.
And she's like, "You're both so comely."
Oh, wait. Is that her son?
No. It's Corlys's son from another woman.
Oh. How did I not get that?
Yeah, I mean, it is, to be fair, it is subtle. Like, I did have to think about it.
Yeah.
And can I pull the curtain back? Yeah. I didn't fully reach the conclusion because the scene changed. But during the scene, when she mentions the mother, I was like, oh, there's like an affair, something. And then we go to the next scene. I kind of forgot about it. And then when I was listening to the official podcast.
Oh, okay.
You know,
so I'm not that stupid.
I did think, I thought they did this scene well because I thought it was kind of implied, like I had the inkling when she's talking to him, and then I have to go back to look at that scene, but the way they both kind of stood next to each other, I really did have a moment where I was like, whoa, like they were both sort of carrying themselves the same way. I think they really, they created a resemblance.
Can I say one thing?
He's got these charts and numbers, and he's like analyzing Aemon's gate.
Pepe Sylvia.
It's the same gate.
Look,
I don't see a resemblance here. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Yeah, so Rhaenys is pretty cool about all of it because she tells Corlys, like, just because he's a piece of crap bastard doesn't mean you should hide him. He should be raised up and honored because he saved your life.
It is weird. Like, bastards hold this interesting place in Westeros where you can first of all, you can legitimize them if you want to. But also there's some of them are just like allowed to be quasi-royal, and others are, I guess, the ones who are more threatening to the lines of succession. It's better for them to just never know. If you're not going to kill them, like as a child, it's better for that person to just not know and live in obscurity.
Does Alan know that he's...
I doubt it.
That Corlys is his father?
I don't know, but he did. Whenever he talks to Corlys, he has this like look of expectation or hope. But I had been viewing it as he just wants some recognition for what he did. Presumably his life is hard because he's one of like the commoners. And if you save a royal person's life, you'd hope that maybe that would have some net positive impact for you.
Well, and Alan talks with Gil or Adam or whatever, one of your guys' names. The other guy, his like
Adam,
friend or
his
brother.
His brother.
Yeah,
Adam.
yeah. And he's like, aren't you going to ask for like some kind of reward or
From Dad?
whatever?
And he's like, what? I mean, I in my view, would Rhaenys have talked to him and made these comments about his mother and all that stuff if he didn't know?
I don't know.
But
I mean,
maybe,
it could be like her own inside joke with herself.
A joke. She's walking away like laughing to herself. Like,
He has no idea.
well, Bela has called Rhaenys to Dragonstone. That's why she's really here. She's telling Corlys about that. Because with Rhaenyra gone, the council's out of control. And I should note, by the way, I saw a spoof Twitter account of Jon Snow. And he's like, there's two kinds of mothers out there, just saying. And it was Catelyn Stark on one side. And he was like, get this filth out of here.
Mhm.
And then Rhaenys on the other. And it's like, you should raise him up and not hide him beneath the tides. Because I don't know if you remember, Dan, but Catelyn Stark, yeah, she was a real cad about all this.
In the books, it was way worse too.
Yeah. Well, enough of Driftmark. Let's head to Dragonstone. Kind of weirdly lacking any kind of scent.
They Febrezed. They did a little Febreze
A
earlier.
little cleanup. Well, Rhaenys joins the Black Council meeting, and you can see everyone at the council's being jerks to Bela. You know, she's the one who spotted Cole when she was on her dragon. Like, why didn't you burn him, you idiot? But they know that Cole is marching. They haven't gotten any ravens from Daemon. Corlys finally interrupts the proceedings. What has become of this council? I used to love this council. And Rhaenys is kind of covering for Rhaenyra. I mean, where is Rhaenyra, right? She's still on her journey back from King's Landing. Rhaenys covers for her. She's like, I don't know what she's up to, when she's the one who kind of told her you should try to talk
So in
to
this
Alicent
episode, they have to wait for her to get back. But in the previous one, they go from maybe there's a way to talk to Alicent, and there's like,
What?
I'm in the castle.
Well, it's the tides. If the water's going toward King's Landing versus you're going against the tide. And this is where you get that line, Daemon will have more untangling to do than Lyseni orgy, which Lyce is a free city. I was trying to read about it on the wiki of Ice and Fire. There were too many ads on the page, so I left. But I presume...
is it fandom?
No, not fandom, actually.
Okay, because I've installed so many different custom ad blocks just to make fandom usable.
Gil researching Lyseni orgies ended up on some weird websites.
Let's just put it this way. I had to use DuckDuckGo.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, or not Melisandre. What's the spy lady? The White Worm. What's her name?
Missaria.
Missaria.
I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring lately.
Missaria's just in there, like creeping, listening to the council meeting.
Yeah.
Wait, she was there?
Yeah, they just show
Why
her
is
for a
this
second.
random?
Wait, that was... Hold on. That was not this scene. But you are right, though. So at the next council meeting...
That's like Tobias Funke showing up like in the Situation Room in the Oval Office. Or, like in the White House. Like when they're trying to like kill Osama bin Laden.
He comes with popcorn. He's like, so what you guys doing?
Yeah.
Doing another council meeting? Well, so at the next council meeting, Rhaenyra finally returns. Jace, Adam, ready? Credit. You called this. Jace is going to be angry at some point. Where have you been? Rhaenyra explains. She was trying to sue Alicent for peace. And now she knows there is no choice but to fight. They know that
I started to get excited because now she's going to be unleashed because she's given up on the idea of peace.
Yeah, exactly. Daniel, more to you, Daniel. You were complaining. I'm sick of this trying to stop the war stuff.
Will they? Won't they?
Yeah, it's happening. This is Jim and Pam all over again.
Yeah.
If they were dragons trying to kill each other. So they know Cole's marching on Rook's Rest. Jay says we have to send a dragon. And Rhaenyra tells him, Some people have mistaken my caution for weakness. I'll show them. I'm going to fly out. Jace is like, oh my God, you can't go. We can't send the queen to go die in battle. Jace wants to go.
Everyone's first reaction is, let me go kill myself for this.
Exactly. Nobody wants to exist in this horrible world. So everyone's just looking for an excuse.
Oh, you need somebody to die in battle?
Yeah, I'll do it. Jace wants to go, but Rhaenyra, I think, rightfully points out that he lacks the experience. And you see Jace, he's kind of like, he's kind of like annoyed.
She got me there.
And then Rhaenys is like, this is my chance. She volunteers.
This is my ticket out of this place.
Out of this hellhole.
Now, I'll say, I don't know what it was specifically, but early on in this episode, I could tell she was going to die. They do
Adam
something.
Can't tell. Adam can't tell that guy's a bastard when it's like spelled out in the scene.
Yeah. Look,
but Adam's
I'm on another level.
Dreams.
I'm just on another level. Some things are too simple. I exist in like the
He's
12th
Bran.
dimension.
He's in like 75 different times at once.
Yeah. Cut me some slack.
He's going to accidentally hold door himself.
Yeah.
In the middle of the podcast, you just start yelling, hold the door!
Hold the door!
Adam's like, he's lying in bed in the morning. He doesn't feel like getting up, so he like wargs into himself.
Yeah, and it just short circuits. It permanently destroys my brain. Where was I? Oh yeah, you can tell like in most TV shows, like when someone's going to die that episode, they do something with either the way that they're written, the way the camera focuses on them, the amount of attention given to them. You could just tell she was done.
Yeah. I mean, I will say until she volunteered to go to battle, then I was like, this is it. Well, afterward, Rhaenyra and Jace have a talk. She tries to give him some perspective, so he understands that this is all more than just fighting for a crown. He tells her about the Song of Ice and Fire. And that gets intercut with Rhaenys preparing to fly off, and also with Aegon getting drunk and getting on the back of his own dragon.
Yeah.
And now, the battle begins. Starts with standard arrows, swords, and that kind of stuff.
She just transmitted the lesson, the prophecy. What does that tell you? I mean, she's starting to feel like the stakes. You remember last episode where I was kind of, Daniel raised maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago, Daniel raised the point of like, shouldn't Rhaenyra have told Baela about it, Rhaena about it, because she's kind of leaving to go to Essos to be, I don't know, this basically sending her to the safe house. So if she's going to be the last surviving Targaryen, maybe she should know about this. You kind of persuaded me that it wasn't at that point yet. And given what a closely guarded secret and that she is not like a direct heir, that she shouldn't divulge the secret to her. But so to the show's credit, they are handling it with the like gravitas that it deserves within the confines of the show. If I remember Game of Thrones, it totally ruins it, but I'm past that point and I've just accepted it. But so I'm glad that they put some focus on it, and she let Jace in on the secret, because it's a crucial difference between these two sides that at least the person at the top, Rhaenyra, is doing this not directly for personal gain or for power, but because of this prophecy.
Yeah. And actually the previous scene when Jace is getting annoyed and he wants to fly into battle, I was thinking to myself that he lacks perspective, which I do find not surprising. He's young, but to some extent, I feel like losing Luke, I'm surprised it hasn't affected him more to be more cautious. But I think this was, I think Jace is somebody that this was a good speech to give him, basically, is what I'm saying.
It's going to send him in the right direction.
Yeah.
It's going to make him less hot-headed.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just showing, I mean, the difference between the sides, right? It's like as Rhaenyra is transmitting this extremely important message about how it's like for the good of the realm, and there's like a drunk Aegon getting onto his dragon.
Yeah, exactly. Because as much as Jace does lack perspective, he is willing to at least listen. You don't know how much he's absorbing, but when she tells him you're not going into battle, he doesn't. And he doesn't keep fighting with her or keep arguing. So he's at least listening to her. Adam, can we go to the battle now?
You have my permission.
Smell that. Carcasses.
Burning flesh.
Hey.
I'll put in some
burning
like,
flesh. Burning flesh smells a lot like just like a grill. Just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to put in some battle music here. The battle begins. Starts out with standard arrows, swords, and stuff like that until Rhaenys shows up on Melis. And it all goes according to plan. This is what Cole and Aemond wanted. He sends out a signal where they use these horns. And it reaches Aemond, who's hiding on Vhagar. He's about to fly in until he notices Aegon arriving on Sunfire. So Cole improvises. "Your king has joined you," gives his people a roaring speech.
That was a
And
good speech.
I thought it was a
Yeah.
great speech.
Yeah.
I do think he's in his
I
element
started to
here.
get like the chills a little bit.
Calls them to advance. They go in, but they soon become irrelevant because we go to the sky. We see Aegon flying in. He tries to burn Rhaenys, but she does a move where she flies under him, attacks from beneath. It's always her move, the beast beneath the boards. Tears into his dragon. He goes into free fall, and Rhaenys grabs him. So now Rhaenys is holding on to Aegon, and then Aemond flies in. And despite Aegon being there, or perhaps it's a bonus that he's there, Aemond Dracarys them. And Aegon and his dragon fall into the forest. Rhaenys escapes, but she turns around, comes back to keep fighting. And she and Aemond fight. A lot of collateral damage on the ground.
Well, she clips herself in also, which I think is basically, I mean, it's like, it makes sense physically, but also it's her saying, "I'm going down with this ship.
And that's
just
so
gonna
they
try
can
to take him out with me."
Weird she wasn't clipped in already going into battle.
Yeah,
I
that
don't know. I
feels-
mean, she's an experienced dragon rider. Like, she probably knows when she's supposed to and not.
You do that when you're going to go like upside down and stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, behind the scenes, they were talking about how they wanted to get that shot in there. So it's like I forget the exact words they use, but it's like kung fu before you're going into a fight. Like you tighten your belt. It's like that badass moment. But they had to find a way to design it. So if you go back to previous scenes, you're like, wait a minute, that thing isn't there. Because I guess they invented it, in this moment.
Oh.
But in all the collateral damage, Cole gets knocked out. For a second, I worried he's going to wake up, battle's over, miss everything. But
It did go to black twice during this battle.
It did when Cole gets knocked out. When did it do it again?
When Rhaenys falls?
Perhaps. Well, Rhaenys seemingly escapes again, but Aemond is waiting for her off the coast, kills her dragon, and she falls to her death. And you see a moment, I think, of acceptance. Kind of raises her arms. And then Cole wakes up and he sees the absolute carnage left by the dragons. There's that great moment where he's like, "Hey, get up, we gotta get going." And then he pats the guy in the back and he's basically just a pile of ash.
That was cool.
And I think that's why they did this, having Cole get knocked out. They wanted the dramatic moment of understanding, oh, this is what it is to be in a war with dragons. And instead of having it be this slow realization throughout the course of the battle, this creates the contrast of Cole is in a war and then kind of blink. Now I see the aftermath and the carnage. So you get that dramatic realization. Afterward, Cole finds Aemond approaching Aegon's body and dragon. Aemond has his sword drawn, and to me looked like a clear, I'm going to go make sure this person is dead sort of pose. Cole calls out to him, "Where is your grace?" Aemond picks up that dagger, Aegon the Conqueror's dagger, points it at Aegon. Is he alive? Is he dead? I'll tell you my answer now. I think it's clearly intentionally ambiguous. I don't think we're supposed to know. But the fact that Aemond had his sword drawn tells me that at least he wasn't sure. And he wanted to go and make sure he's dead. To quote, you could make the argument, oh, I put him out of his misery. But what do you guys think? Who wants to go first? Thoughts on the battle? Thoughts on this moment?
I'll say the battle was very well done. They focused on some actual process and tactics, down to even when you have the archers on like the castle wall, they'll have them all, let loose their arrows, and then they swap with the person behind them so that you can have a constant stream of arrows, and then the person behind you is reloading. So things like that, things like the way Vagar, like the cover of trees, just as something necessary to think about in the battlefield, has come up multiple times, which I find very realistic in the sense that, like, if dragons were a real thing, trees would be super important. And they make use of it in multiple ways. Here you see, instead of people seeking cover in the trees so that they won't be spotted, you actually see that Aemond is able to hide Vagar down there. And Vagar's fully understands what's happening, and like they're ready to go, and then he's like, wait, no, not yet. And then Vagar like rests her little chin.
It's like when you
chin on the
push
floor.
a dog's like head down and get him to rest. Yeah.
And they just accept it. So yeah, I thought, like, down to little details, it was well executed in a way that, I mean, if you think back to the last fight, the last like march of the Dothraki in Game of Thrones, where there's zero tactics, there's zero anything, and you just see all the lights go out. Like, the contrast between this battle and something like that is enormous. So maybe the bar was set a little too low for me, but I thought this was well done.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. I mean, you feel the stakes. I loved Cole's speech. He also had a line when the king arrives of like, this battle is imbued with divine purpose. Something really cool like that. The attention to detail is cool. The one thing on the trees, don't you think if you're on a dragon, you would just burn down the whole forest? Like, it's a bunch of flammable material.
Yeah,
Well,
I was wondering about that. But
I guess you would have done that, not in this scene, because that's where the king is. I guess if Rhaenys
No,
could have gotten there.
Meleys, Rhaenys.
well, you also don't know what's in there. Like, they could have scorpions.
Yeah. And I guess I don't know that a forest burns down more easily than just like breathing fire on a battlefield, right? It's like forests need to be very dry to really catch fire, right? So
I think a dragon's flame could do it.
So safer in the trees or on the battlefield?
You're screwed either way.
I'd rather be in the trees. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome battle. The dragon fighting tactics were cool to see. Of when Meleys and Vagar were like hooked onto each other, like spinning, breathing fire at each other. That was very cool. And I don't think we've not really seen dragons fight each other aside from like the Luke Aemond thing, which wasn't really a fight.
I mean, definitely not on this show. That's the part that was most impressive to me. I mean, honestly, just the fact that I could keep track of what was happening between the 2 and eventually 3 dragons, I found so impressive.
And the whole battle was it was just so exciting. It took me a little while. I guess I didn't realize the trap was Aemond and Vagar until they showed them. At first, I was just like, what could this secret plan be? Because Cole makes a comment like, oh, everything's going according to plan when Meleys shows up. So I at first thought maybe they had like a few of those really good turret things to take down the dragon.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I'll say it still looks cheesy. Whenever you have a front-facing view of someone riding the dragon, I think they should just stop. I know they have to do it so we can see their face and see who they are, but it looks really cheesy the way that their face and the 3D dragon kind of like bounce around the screen.
Yeah, that's why it kind of bummed me out that the moment when I wasn't even going to bring it up, but now that you brought it up, when Rhaenys is actually dying, I wish I didn't get that shot of her like just like, I don't know, looking peaceful, and it just looks cheesy to me. I don't know, every time you see somebody on a dragon. The dragons themselves look great though. Like when you're just I found it so satisfying when one of them bit like one of their like spiky scales off. They look like a real presence, like they're a thing you can, like I can picture in my head what it would feel like to reach out and touch one of these dragons.
I think maybe when she had died, if she had fallen off the dragon, right, just seeing her in free fall, but she had strapped in, so that couldn't have happened.
That's right. Yeah.
They caught themselves in a bind.
But I think this is, like I said at the beginning of this, it's a very meaningful death. I think, Adam, you said you saw it coming right from the start of this episode. The first time
I realized why.
Okay,
it
go
was
ahead.
when we see Alicent's holding one of her kids' toys, the dragon toy, and she drops it, and the head falls off. I was like, okay, someone is getting killed this episode, including their dragon. And just like between that and the way they were giving Rhaenys some screen time, not necessarily more than normal, but she had this like peaceful air about her, almost like she was, almost like death was imminent, and she kind of accepted it.
And we should have seen it coming even before this episode, because multiple times we've called out, she seems like one of the most smart, level-headed people around. She's somebody that's good to have on your side. So, of course, she's got to be the first one to go.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an emotional death, and it's also a very impactful one, because what now will happen on Rhaenyra's side? And it was making me think about how, we've called this out a few times already, but it really feels like nobody is being very strategic or playing any kind of chess, except for in this moment, Cole and Aemond had this plan. It's kind of the first time we've seen something like that. Otherwise, all these decisions are made as these big dramatic moments. Even here, Rhaenyra is not like, I've done the math and we should send a dragon. It's, people have mistaken my caution for cowardice. Let that be their undoing. I shall ride forth on my dragon. I want to see people just take a deep breath, start planning some stuff out, be strategic. But I think losing Rhaenys is not going to help. So, although I would say this was a Pyrrhic victory for whichever side won, everyone lost a lot. Everybody lost a lot of stuff. To me, even if Aegon is dead, it feels like a bigger loss for Team Green losing Rhaenys.
Wait,
Team Black.
For Team Black? No, but I mean, this is a huge victory for Aemond. I think Aemond completely comes out on top, right?
Yes.
Aemond
agreed.
probably gets the throne, and I mean, a victory. They killed Rhaenys' dragon.
Yeah.
And they
Now,
take
is
this
there any-
castle.
Now, are there any alternatives? Because was that Aegon's only son that was killed in the previous episode or 2 episodes ago?
Yes. Yeah. They have another. Remember, there were just 2 babies there.
Yeah, they have a dog.
And they were
Yeah.
trying to figure out
right.
which one was the man,
a-
which was
yeah.
the boy. Yeah, I mean, Aemond, do people call him Prince Aemond?
think so.
It's that when you said Prince Aemond, I was like, I feel like I've
Sounded
heard that
right.
before.
But
Yeah.
you're sure you're not thinking of Prince Daemon when I said that?
I don't
I
know.
think so. So yeah, I'm wondering like what are in terms of the line of succession, what the consequences are. It does seem like it's going to go to Aemond, but I'm just trying to think about.
And
any
Aemond took the
curveballs that might
dagger,
be-
right? It's got
Yeah,
to
he
be
did.
something.
Yeah. Though I think so. One thing I was thinking about this episode, meant to point it out earlier. I'm not sure if I did, but remember the last time before this episode, Aemond and Aegon interacted. It's when Aegon found him with Madame Sylvie and made fun of him. And so I'm like, if that hadn't happened, would Aemond have so happily tried to burn him alive this episode? Would
That's a
he
good point.
have so pressed him at the council meeting? A lot of this feels like spiteful revenge, and again, an emotional outburst after he got made fun of and that old wound got opened back up when he was found with Madame Sylvie. Which again, I think that has been a running theme of people making
now-
these little emotional decisions with such big impact.
If Aemond was in Daemon's bed in Harrenhal, not with Daemon, but just instead, would he be having nightmares like this? I don't think so. I think like there are a lot of parallels between Daemon and Aemond, and they're like a very good character foil for each other. But I think one difference is I don't think Aemond is going to feel any level of guilt about this.
Well, and remember, Aemond feels guilty somewhat about killing Luke. Right? He says, I didn't mean to do it. Right? When he's talking to, his lady.
Madame Sylvie.
Well, I think that it seems less like guilt for having taken that life and more guilt over
Just screwing things up.
Yeah, just like things not going according to plan, or letting a situation get away from him. In this case, it seemed pretty deliberate.
So, okay, I agree that I think this felt more deliberate. With Luke, I do think he genuinely feels guilty. But to your question about would he have nightmares about it, I think the difference between him and Daemon is that Aemond has acknowledged it, right? He's told Madame Sylvie he feels guilty. I think to some extent he's confronted that emotion and decided what he's going to do about it. He's going to sort of own the action, use it as a tool, as part of his persona in this war. Daemon, I don't think he's acknowledged any of this out loud.
Yeah.
So I think his guilt is kind of buried. And so that's why it haunts him.
I think Aemond understands himself better than Daemon does.
Yeah, that's my impression at the moment.
So this is going to be crazy. I mean, if Aemond is king, we have like a super ruthless, capable guy in charge now on Team Green. And we have a sort of unleashed, black-pilled Rhaenyra.
Yeah, though now she doesn't have Rhaenys. So next time she's like, I'm going to go fly on a dragon. There might not be somebody to volunteer in her place.
She is kind of unleashed. Or maybe the hotter heads, right, are now going to prevail in her small council.
I'll say one thing I thought about later on is that Rhaenyra essentially let Rhaenys go to her death without telling her, by the way, your son is still alive out there. I just want you to know that.
Oh, yeah.
Because, Rhaenys always had that belief that Rhaenyra may have killed her son, and she let her go believing that. Now, I understand it. You probably don't want her distracted. And she might change her mind, too. Like, what? I'm not going to go fight your war for you.
Yeah, screw this.
Yeah, and then Rhaenys will be like, what, so you killed some random guard or somebody?
Hey, what about you, Beast Beneath the Boards? Did you ever check the body count? I'm never letting that go. Well, so you guys both sound very confident that Aegon is dead. Any doubt in your mind?
Only since we started talking about it. If he is still alive, it'll kind of annoy me because I'm sick of writers treating death as it's like, oh, it's this like ultimate outcome that we can kind of titillate the audience with and hang over them like we're like a cat and they're holding a little fish on a string and we're swatting at it, and we can't quite get a grip. But even if he survives, he's going to be totally incapacitated. So it might not make much of a difference other than if he is somehow still alive, but unable to do anything, then you'll just have this like more drawn out power struggle.
Yeah. Well, Alicent told him, you're not even half the king your father was. After this, he might actually be half the king his father was.
I really did like the whole battle until we saw Aegon lying there. Like, I really didn't think Aegon could actually die here. I thought, oh, he's going to lose his dragon. And so now he's going to become like completely, ineffective and even more sort of insecure because he's going to have, a nuclear weapon. He's got to be dead, right? But
yeah,
it was shocking to me.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance he's dead, but it would be interesting if he isn't. This would be such a major development for his character. Someone who's never had to fight adversity, someone who's never gotten, you got to slap some sense into him. Like this would slap some sense into him, I feel like. And it could be one of those things, don't they say when you get in like when you're a drunk driver and you get in an accident, you might
like
actually
body relaxes.
Yeah, you become like a rag doll. So you actually end up the slightly higher chance of survival.
The alcohol saved his life.
Yeah, maybe.
Don't you think it just makes him more flammable?
That's a good point.
He spontaneously combusts just from being near the dragon.
Oh, the other thing was, Cole doesn't run. Cole, what does he do at the end? He like kneels down. He doesn't run to Aegon.
Yeah,
that tells you that he thinks Aegon's dead.
That's what. Yeah, I thought the same thing because if he might be alive, and you spend these 8 seconds on your knees over here while he's breathing his last breath. I don't know if they know CPR back then, so maybe he couldn't do anything anyway. He could at least hear his final words.
They did actually. I'm pretty sure with the whole drowned god thing when Theon was being initiated, I think they drowned him, and then I think they pressed on his chest at least to get the water out.
Mhm.
They just didn't give him mouth to mouth.
Gotcha.
That's not exactly the same as CPR because his heart was presumably still working. So I don't know. It superficially looks similar, but it's not exactly the same.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll see.
And just one thing you reminded me of, when Cole first realizes Aegon is there in the battle, I loved the look of panic on his face, because he went from having all this confidence and like, okay, we have a plan, like everything's going according to plan, to once he sees Aegon, I think it was Gwaine who asked, like, is this part of your plan or something? Someone asked.
That's right. No,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
Gwaine. Yeah.
And Cole doesn't give a very wordy answer, but he's basically like, no.
I mean, he
And
literally
he's kind
just
of-
yells no, I think.
Yeah, and he's like freaked out, and he has to go deal with this now. And he did a good job this episode.
Yeah, I
that
think
was cool to watch.
he looked very strong in that moment because he says no, acknowledges it, and then quickly, like I said, improvises.
Springs into action.
And he takes what advantage they can get. Your king is here. He makes that great speech. So it's probably the most I've ever respected Cole since the first time we met him. And we thought, like, look at this scrapping young underdog. He's the Jon Snow of this show.
And despite all of his scheming with Aemond, we see them like sitting and concocting these plans together in the middle of the night. Aemond didn't know that Aegon was going to show up, but Aemond took that opportunity and basically took out his brother. How's Cole going to react to this?
Right. And we agree that's what happened, right? When he saw Aegon, it wasn't just collateral damage. I have no choice here. I've got to hurt him. It was nice. I could take them both out.
By the way, I mean, can he get away with that? I mean, there will be people who saw what happened. I guess it's like there's just enough chaos in battle. He can say,
That's what I was
I was
thinking.
trying to save Aegon. I was trying to, he was going to die.
Yeah. I told him to kind of duck, like I told him to, and he
Yeah.
didn't,
I told him in
said
High
it with-
Valyrian. He never studied it.
I gave him a look. It's like when Jackie Chan is trying to in Rush Hour, and he starts tilting his head one way and then another way, and he has to explain. He's like, "It means you go this way, I go that way."
Yeah, I think very interested to see what happens to Cole after this episode. I think he got a big wake-up call about what this war is going to look like, and I have to think it's going to alter his relationship with Aemond. And yeah, I'm very curious to see where it goes.
I think
Unfortunately-
I think he's
Oh, go ahead.
think he's gonna remain loyal to Aemond. I don't know what else he could do.
It's hard. I mean, Cole is sworn to. He's Kingsguard, right? He's sworn to protect Aegon.
I mean, he
and
left the battle. He left the battle essentially to go check on him.
Yeah, and I mean, he seemed very upset. I don't know. He's been struggling to have some semblance of honor, and I know. I mean, he said it's like too late for him to have any honor, but I wonder if this might be too much for him, and he will. I don't know. Like maybe he can't be loyal to Aemond after this. Like maybe that is too far for him.
Yeah, my feeling is that it is too far. How exactly that'll manifest? Maybe it's I go along with Aemond, but behind his back, I'm more open with Alicent. I don't know how open he's been with her about his side dealings with Aemond.
I'm
He's the right-
anticipating something like that because I think this whole experience it has to lead to some growth for Cole. So whatever his reaction, I don't think it will just explode out of him immediately the way he would have in the past.
Another thought is like, is there another side? Like, I can't picture Cole going and joining like Rhaenyra after this, right? But is there like another side? I mean, is it possible Team Green will
You
split
can
apart?
join the trees, the
The
Ents.
Free Cities.
I am on nobody's side because nobody is on my side. That's Cole.
Who
now.
else? Who
That's
else
why he
would-
loves the
would-
trees so much.
Who else would like claim to the throne? Besides
What was that?
Aemond?
Orgy people, the lice,
Ulf,
the
maybe
Lysol
Ulf.
people.
Is there?
No,
any
I don't know.
I know.
I mean, yeah, there is. I mean,
Daemon.
in Game of Thrones, we saw War of the Seven Kingdoms. You know, like there were multiple different people trying to get the throne, not just two sides.
has anyone been set up so far that could take on that role?
I don't think so, and I don't see the scope of this show getting broad enough to be able to handle something like that. But it's a fair question.
But yeah, I guess it has to be somebody with a dragon, right? So it basically has to be a fracture within Team Green. I don't know what other men there are. Like, yeah,
I think Helena's gonna step in and take over.
Just babbling her nonsense.
Yeah.
Otto. Otto's the other son. The son who is in
Darren.
Darren,
I was wondering about Darren.
How could you idiots
I was wondering
forget
about Darren,
Darren?
but I don't know what that. I mean, they set something up there, and there's been no Darren news yet. So I bet
this
we're
might
in
be
for
the
something
time.
next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what would it be? Like, that's
Well, can
Alicent's
Otto-
son, so that would be one of Aegon's brothers.
Yeah. Would
But he would be younger than Aemond, right?
Yeah. But
I
can
think. I could be wrong, but
like what would Otto want? Like, can Otto control Aemond?
Otto is he's having a heart attack. He's popped an aneurysm at this point. I don't know, like how. Look at everything that happened since he left. If I were him, I'd be like, I can't take it anymore. Like you people suck. Like I'm gonna go declare independence.
It all goes back to that line. I have sinned. I do not wish to hear this.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I do. I really miss Otto. I have to say.
Yeah, I want to see him. I really hope next episode we see Otto and Darren.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out in about 8 weeks, I think. This is the end of season 4, part 1. Now there's
Wait, what?
hiatus. I'm just kidding.
I was going to ask how many episodes are there.
I believe that this is actually only an 8-episode season. So we're halfway through now.
Man.
They've really packed a lot into these 4 episodes.
Well, and we just had such an exciting episode. Things are going to slow down for a few episodes.
I don't mind that. Some of my favorite Game of Thrones episodes were the slower ones with like long council meetings and whatnot.
But the issue is we're going to have to wait like a few years after this season.
We'll
that's terrible.
A bottle episode, they could do one of those. By the way, confirmed it'll be 8 episodes.
Oh, you said confirmed it'll be 8, and I really thought you were going to say it'll be Aemond on the throne.
Oh, no. All right, shall we wrap it up there, guys?
Yes.
I know what you're all thinking. I could see it in your eyes. I could feel it in the vibe just coming from the listeners somehow, even though they haven't heard this yet.
Smell that vibe coming from the listeners?
Ew. Everybody's wondering, what was better, Dukes of Hazzard or Starsky and Hutch?
Finally, you ask what we've all been thinking.
People could stop emailing in already, okay? I answer that question finally, definitively. A link to it. I guested in an episode of Box Office Battles, I think it's called, on the official Joey C's YouTube channel. People are like, what the hell is he talking about?
You've never watched either of those movies.
Starsky and Hutch I saw in theaters 20 years ago.
Okay.
Dukes of Hazzard I watched the other day. May have watched it on 3x speed. I don't think it affects the humor or comedy. I'll link to that in the show notes.
Our viewers.
By the way, while we were talking, Adam, you sent us the GIF or the GIF of Futurama them rolling the Beast Man.
Woo!
So while we were talking, they didn't expect to see it. I just looked over here as I got really distracted for part of this. But okay, to wrap it up, though.
I thought you were gonna pull it up.
No, it's too complicated. I'll pull it up, like I said, when I edit.
Okay.
I'll just have it. You know how there's 3 boxes?
Cover me.
Well, I was going to say I'll move you over. We'll have 4 boxes. One of them will be this on
He's the
repeat.
4th guest.
But yeah, to wrap it up, again, if you're watching this and you want to listen, find us in any podcast app, Talking Targaryen. If you're listening, you want to watch, click the link in the description. Sign up for the Patreon if you want to support us. I'm Gil.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Adam.
Dracarys.
Dracarys.
So, with that, I'm Gil.
I'm Daniel.
Can we start that over? We should just go clockwise.
We need to go clockwise. Like I need a hole in the head.